Trinidad by our Prime Minister. There we see Moko Jumbis holding flags both of Trinidad and Tobago, and India, a sight to behold. Live highlights at this point in time. And while we wait for the arrival of the Prime Minister of India, Dr. Singh, you drew the line for us, looking at culture, looking at trading, investment. You spoke a little about building capacity. Where do you see the partnership evolving? And if we say, people like to talk about short, medium, long term, what does that look like for you?
I definitely see it evolving into something strong on all levels, in terms of culture, in terms of investments, bilateral engagements, and so on. I definitely see it, having those kinds of strong ties. Each space, that is Trinidad and Tobago and India, each has a lot to offer the other, and each has a lot to learn from each other. Especially now when it's also, this kind of economic ties, but also the history. And that connection is only going to make it stronger, because it's that sort of personal element there that comes in for Prime Minister Modi and also for India, because he is engaging his diaspora. India is engaging her diaspora at all these levels. So I definitely see you will have short-term results, depending maybe in IT, ICT, in education, but you also will have long-term results in terms of spaces like agriculture, in terms of new energy, solar, wind energy, and so forth. So definitely, and as I said, Trinidad is assisting India towards its entry into this new South space via the Caribbean into Latin America and so forth. So for each of the parties, there would be short, medium, long-term results, benefits to all, for sure.
And I think sometimes when people look at relationships like this, they think that things can only move from the larger geographical space, the higher concentration of people, to the smaller space. And I'm really glad that while it may not be even at this point in time, it's not as though it's just one direction.
Way. Definitely. I mean, it's one of the things that I think other diaspora spaces can learn from this interaction between India and Trinidad and Tobago, is that, the smaller country, as you say, the diaspora can offer something to that larger space, and in the diaspora context, that motherland, as we would call it. Yeah, it sort of reaffirms that within the diaspora context that, in the indenture diaspora, because it was a long period after indenture, where many people in the diaspora in Trinidad and elsewhere, they felt almost like forgotten people. As I said, India was busy with its independence and trying to work things out. And, they knew that these people had made these various locations their home, so they were okay. But culturally speaking, emotionally speaking, many Indians, 30s, 40s, 20s, they felt very much afloat in that sense. So now it is a situation of, it can come back. Yeah, so it's like doing away with this feeling of floating and alienation. So, and it also shows that you don't only have to engage this motherland figure on an emotional or cultural level. Here, we are engaging the motherland on a different level that, let's say, at the beginning of the 20th century, nobody would have thought that this would happen at all. Yeah, so it's a different kind of relationship. And I do think a lot of the other diasporas can look and learn and understand that, this is what is happening. And it gives diaspora people an opportunity to engage a different India. Because when indentured laborers left India, it was an absolutely downtrodden economy, society that they left. And now we are engaging this India, this burgeoning India, this successful, this on the way to becoming an economic giant kind of India, and in the persona of Shri Narendra Modi. So it gives these Indian indentured laborers, their descendants, it gives them that sense of pride that, you know, India is not just about this downtrodden space that we came from, but this is what it is, and we have the chance now to engage it and engage each other, you know, and help to each other to grow and to benefit in different ways.
And I guess that also speaks to the cultural confidence that I was hinting at, saying that there is this possibility. Why? Because you see it.
Yes.
And talking about seeing it in the person of Shri Narendra Modi, the Prime Minister of India at this point in time. Also, speaking of the person, seeing the possibilities in the person, I want you to speak to the significance of this welcome, this meeting of two prime ministers, and specifically the fact that the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, who is greeting the Prime Minister of India, is a woman, is an Indian woman who is the head of this party, and it is the second time that she is in this office.
This is in itself what you have described, this meeting of a female Indian Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago with the Prime Minister of India, a male. It speaks volumes. It speaks volumes for the diaspora. It speaks volumes for India. It tells of a story. We can say it is now the climax of the story, but I won't say the climax because you don't know where the story will go again. But it is a climatic point in the story where from a situation of various levels of oppression and suppression, moving out of that space, Indians, and of course Indian women, they've now made that journey to where an Indian woman has become Prime Minister. And I think Prime Minister Modi will just take immense pride in knowing that this daughter, this granddaughter of the diaspora, you know, she is now leading a country, and a country that's, you know, she's Indian, but a country that's multi-ethnic in that sense. So I think it speaks a lot about the journey of the Indians in the diaspora, the journey of the Indians in Trinidad and Tobago as a diasporic community. It also speaks about, in terms of Indian women, you know, I know there's a lot of changes have taken place in terms of the role and position of Indian women in India, as it has in Trinidad also. So I think it will be very heartening for Prime Minister Modi and us to understand that we have to go back in the history, which I won't do now, it will be too long, to understand, you know, what women had to deal with and how they navigated so many spaces of oppression and so on, to come to where we are today, to the point that we have a female Indian Prime Minister. So in terms of, you know, a more gendered kind of analysis, I think that it is a very proud moment. It's also a moment where, for the diaspora person, you know, it brings you immense pride to not just say, okay, this is one of us, but also say, one from our land, so to speak, is now meeting one of us. So it is a very emotional moment, a very sentimental moment in that sense.
And you said it would be a very long tale, but asking what, from some of the research that you've done, what are some of the ways that women navigate that world in terms of that line between tradition, modernity, which sometimes can seem to be at odds?
I would say, first of all, in 2025, I don't know if we should be saying tradition and modernity still. Because, too, we have to remember that what is tradition today was once modern. And what is modern today will one day be tradition, yes? But I understand what you said. I was just being cheeky.
Thank you for the grace.
Yeah, so, yes, but on a serious note, they've had to navigate a lot. We look at Indian women today, I mean women generally, but we're speaking about Indian women, and they are in everything. There is hardly, in the world out there, you know, somebody, you know, not many people dare say now a woman can't do this simply because she's a woman. Yeah, the restrictions are almost all gone. Maybe in the private space you still have some of those elements at play, but in the public space, you know, even if it's there in the public space, it's not overtly visible. But what I can say is that, yes, still there is navigation between this private and public space, but I don't think it's specific for women, because a man would, be one way in a public space, but when he goes home, he's a different way. He might do certain things home that he's not comfortable doing in a private space. But, women have had to deal with this too. It's just that because, in, let's say, in 40s, 50s, maybe up to the 80s, things were so gendered in a sense, especially for Indian women, where, women's, relegated to things like, okay, housework, looking after the children. Up to the 70s, many Indian women did what people call stayed at home, but it wasn't really staying at home in the sense of not working, because they were working. Apart from looking after a household, they were working. Almost all women in the rural areas were working in the agricultural field. So they were working double time in that sense. But there is this idea that once it's in the home, you don't count it as work in that sense. So there was that sort of defined the parameters for Indian women. And now, with the rise of education, more integration in different areas into the larger society, but especially education, you have women now moving out of that previous space, not moving away from it, but moving out in the sense that they still go back to it. It's still part of their lives. So it's now trying to find a balance. And if it means, being one persona in the public and one persona in the private, then okay, that's how you navigate. That's how you find that balance. And as I said, it's not a specifically women thing; it's a people thing.
And even looking at that, you find that societies, groupings, communities, they're not a monolith unto themselves, so much less people. So there's a multiplicity of selves that people would be organizing to show those faces. And I think we see a plane coming in.
Oh, yes, we do.
So just before that plane lands, Prime Minister Kamla Persad-Bissessar, I believe we can agree that she will be a model that many individuals, many girls, women, men as well would want to follow. Are there cited cases of individuals that she would have looked at, she would have drawn influence from?
I think in a couple of the interviews, she definitely cited her mother, because her mother was the one who pushed her, a female at that time, to, do away with the norms, go beyond the norms of society, for a girl to stay at home and, and go abroad and study and pursue her degree and so forth. And she also said that while she was in England, she saw, what minority women had to deal with. And she made up her mind at that point to become a lawyer, or just strengthen her resolve to become a lawyer to deal with this kind of inequity. So those are the 2 points that I met in terms of what pushed her on towards achieving.
Right, and we are seeing the plane drawing ever closer to the tarmac. So before it alights on the tarmac in Piarco, we progress with our in-studio conversation, and we want to thank you very much, Dr. Sherry-Ann Singh, academic lecturer, just making sense as well, sharing insight, lecturer of Indian History and Indian Diaspora Studies in the Department of History, UWI, for that wealth of knowledge, helping to set the stage with a socio-cultural context of the history past and potentially yet to come with the Prime Minister Modi's visit to Trinidad and Tobago. And we have now seen the plane alight. And before Prime Minister Modi disembarks, we are going to be welcoming Captain Isaiah Eastmond of the Trinidad and Tobago Regiment to help us have a better appreciation for the military and the protocol aspect that we will be witnessing as the Honorable Shri Narendra Modi visits Trinidad and Tobago. And this is for the first time in the capacity of Prime Minister of India, because he's been here before, but never as Prime Minister. So we're looking forward to that. So thank you very much, Dr. Singh.
Yes.
And hopefully we're able to have more conversations like this.
Yes.
So we're taking some sights as the plane is taxiing, and we will get Captain Eastmond into position. Thank you so much for your presence, Captain Eastman. We've done something like this already.
Yes, we
but
did.
This is a very different occasion.
It is.
But at the same time, there are levels of protocol, there are levels of procedure.
Yes.
What are some of those things that we're looking forward to today?
Well, DK, before we reach into that, I want to coin a phrase today. Remember last year we spoke about diplomacy. I want to coin the phrase the diplomatic circle. And it's the beginning of the diplomacy from beginning to end. And the diplomatic circle is basically what you're about to witness now. And the Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force is always honored to be a part of the opening part of the diplomatic circle, which is what we're going to witness, a guard of honor. So you're going to see a guard of honor. From there, just like we normally do, you would see an inspection, and then it will continue into a procession by giving a salute, and then they move on into the other aspects of the diplomatic circle.
No, I don't know if it's maths that I'm going to ask you to do for me, but I heard a term, it's the first time I've heard it.
Yeah.
A half guard.
A half guard, yes. So there are different types of guards based on numbers. So it's 45, then there's 95, and then there's a higher number. According to the Queen's regulations and the drill manual, it's broken down into different numbers and different roles and functions. But this half guard is more so will be totally comprising of the Trinidad and Tobago Air Guard.
And so, yes, there's you said the Air Guard as well as who, please?
It's strictly the Air Guard today. So it's going to be the Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force Air Guard, and they will provide the Guard of Honor half for the official visit.
And when you say Guard of Honor,
yes,
is there a specific place that they're going to be posted or positioned? Because we see the plane still taxiing.
So they're going to be positioned along the runway and along where you can see, if we can get footage, you'll actually see where there'll be a red carpet. Right, so as soon as the plane stops, there will be a red carpet. Then you'll see saluting dais. And from the dais, that's where the Guard of Honor will take place.
And it's interesting looking at the work that is still taking place in the short term.
I am going to tell you now. I just wanted to make mention, even if it would have come up into shot, the red carpet. The work that happens before the actual event is in my opinion, and the opinion of my seniors and almost even persons who are junior to me, is that it's unheralded work. No one tells you thanks, but it's work that we are honored to do. And even if you just look at the red carpet is laid down, it's nailed down, it's swept, it's kept clean by members of the Support and Service Battalion at Tetron Barracks, the Pioneer Department. And that aspect is also part of the recognition of diplomacy, because a red carpet signifies, powerful symbolism of ceremonial significance. It signifies diplomacy, it signifies a state protocol, and you can see once that occurs, there's a beautiful diplomatic scene of a dignitary walking onto a red carpet and then receiving a salute, and from there inspecting and then carrying on with the day.
And speaking of a beautiful scene, I consider this a beautiful scene, the one that we just saw, in terms of having Moko Jumbis in the foreground and the plane carrying the Prime Minister of India behind them while they're getting closer to that red carpet.
That's what you'll call cultural diplomacy. That is, and it's part of the circle. So you're seeing military diplomacy, cultural diplomacy. I mean, I can't speak to the bilateral agreements or the MOUs that will be signed, but it all fits and lines up as part of the visit.
And we tried to get some of that information from the Minister of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs, but he was very cagey with it, as understandably he could be. But it is very interesting because I can see some people even wondering, so why have Moko Jambi is there, and trying to just streamline it to elements that are a lot more East Indian or Indian in nature,
right,
as opposed to saying, this is who we are.
Yeah.
And we are sharing who we are with you,
yes,
in honor of your visit. It actually takes me to the term namaste,
right,
which is with the strength in my hands, the love in my heart,
yes,
the intelligence of my mind. I greet the divine within you.
Right.
And you don't necessarily do that with peace of yourself.
No.
You don't make that distinction in terms of like that synthetic distinction. And
yes,
even that we're looking at that, we see the flag of Trinidad and Tobago and the flag of India on the nose,
yes,
almost the nose of the plane.
I agree with you.
There's that red carpet that you were speaking about, sir.
Yes. So you can, to have that red carpet there, it needs to be placed many hours before, and the senior NCO, the sergeant who is responsible for it, has to ensure that as soon as the guest or the head of state comes off, there's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with it. It's properly swept. It's not supposed to even have a bleach mark on it. And I know that they do their best in actually making sure that the area is ready for a day like this.
And even looking at the fact that you say that it is unheralded work,
yes,
but if there's an issue, then that is an issue.
Very correct. Very correct.
Because it starts from the things even before words are exchanged.
Yes.
There are these things that show how much we think that this visit means, and there are these non-verbal levels of communication.
Correct.
All forming part of the diplomatic circle.
I mean, there's an advance party. So advance party will go in and say, this is what we want, this is how it's going to happen. And this is not this is not military language, but it's more so going into the whole diplomatic circle of, you have to prepare before the principal actually arrives. And that's something that we could have seen Independence last year, where there was a preparation before Her Excellency arrived. And after Her Excellency leaves the space, there's also things that have to fall into place as well. So it's a lot of an unheralded work. And I know for a fact, being a serving member myself, that the men and women who are out there, yes, it's hard, yes, the sun is hot, but they are part of history that they can tell their grandkids 10, 20 years from now. They can pull this up, they can pull this up on YouTube and show someone, Google me, look, I'm right there, I'm there. You know, that's the level of pride that you can see, that they will not show you with their face, but they're inside, they're beaming it.
Yeah, and there's a certain courage that you find people holding themselves with and saying, okay, well, I'm representing my grouping.
Yes.
I'm also representing myself.
Yes.
I'm representing those that will come after me, to your point.
Yeah.
Look, auntie was there, uncle was there, dad was this, we were there on this day.
Very correct.
And these are the things that, well, some of the things that you actually say, all right, I'm very happy that I've been able to work to this position, because just by its nature, half guard would not necessarily be as many people numerically. Yeah. So you're getting things whittled away, so it's the best representation that you're moving towards. Yes,
and there are other things that are planned for the entire visit. But you are getting the best of the best, according to Will Smith, the best of the best, sir. And I think the ladies and gentlemen who formed this Guard of Honor, again, I'll say it again, I'm more than privileged to be here.
Looking at and even before we get into what is going to be happening in terms of protocol, how much more of a challenge is it when there are things that you're trying to get done and implement, but there would be pieces of information that you have embargoed, you're not able to share this, or in terms of like the total schedule, so that everyone is on the same page, because it's as needs to know?
Yeah, I mean, that's the nature of almost everything, even in the military. You know, there are times where you have implied tasks, and the implied tasks are if I tell you to do A, and I don't give you the other information and I ask, and that information is not privy, I'm also supposed to do my estimate and confirm I have 3 courses of action. What do I do in this one if this situation happens? It's something that we like to do in military training called war gaming. So we put out many different scenarios and assess what's going to happen at any point in time. For example, I remember there was a military diplomatic course I did, and they made mention of, what if a horse dies? Do I have an excavator to lift the horse off? Or what are my actions on for any type of circumstance or situation based on my restraints, based on on things that I have available to me, my resources? So these are the things that you may not be aware of all the things, but you try to plan for everything.
Is initiative allowed like that?
Yes. Yeah, and initiative is allowed. You also have to know how to go about doing it.
I like how you're putting that qualifier.
Yes.
Because I think sometimes people may lean towards saying, okay, well, there's an instruction,
yes,
and you carry it out to the best of your ability.
Yes.
The best of your ability is to get it done.
Yeah.
But to your point, the implied instruction, which may need you to add a few steps.
Right, and in adding those few steps, you always go back to your commander who gave you the instruction and you seek clarity. And from that, once you get clarity, you continue along your task.
Speaking of tasks, as we see some members of the diaspora waiting to welcome the Prime Minister of India, Shri Narendra Modi, I see 2, and we have the Indian flags as well,
yes,
or the flags of the Republic of India.
Yes.
I see 2 sets of stairs.
Right. On the plane?
Yes. Who uses what stairs?
Right. So that I'm glad you recognize that. If you can look beyond the shot, you're going to see there was a van that pulled up behind it. Right. That's assistants, a staff, all auxiliary staff that would. There we go.
We see some people disembarking.
There we go.
Now.
You have your media. Now they go through a different aspect and then a different door, and then from there you will see the Honorable Prime Minister actually coming down the main stairway.
I think there will even be the opportunity for, let me say, image taken, because I don't want to say shot,
right,
or video footage taken of the Prime Minister of India, possibly at the top of the stairs?
Possibly. I think, I'm not sure what a goodly cameraman would do, but yeah, I believe so.
But we're trying to get everything to the individuals tuned into this broadcast. And even when we were looking at some of the people waiting, I saw someone looking, it seems as though he was in a Ram Leela costume. But here we have our Prime Minister, who is getting ready to greet Prime Minister Modi.
Yes.
The Honorable Kamala Prasad Bissessa. And we see a gift of flowers that will also be presented to Prime Minister Modi.
Yes. That is the aide, Captain J. Richards.
And even like the saying, I was there at this point in time, I think this young man is forever going to remember this as a point in his life.
Yes, I agree with you.
So we're getting ready to see who next will be disembarking. You see, there is a measured approach. I even like the mix of the gentlemen, because I believe this young man is a performer. He's been on 12 and Under as well on TTT.
Okay.
We have Minister Sean Sobers, Minister of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs. I'm seeing, I believe this is the Indian High Commissioner as well as the person in charge of protocol at Piarco airports. On the carpet to greet Prime Minister Modi. And yes, it does look as though the unheralded work was quite successful.
I would agree with that. I would agree with that.
And the fact that there's so many incremental nuances placed in, it makes me even wonder whether or not there might be a reason that we have some people who are on the red carpet, some people who aren't. But or is this me overthinking?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure with respect to the amount of persons on the red carpet.
So we'll be looking at positioning, where the half guard will be,
Yes.
where Madam Prime Minister will be, because we also have members of the cabinet as well.
I'm seeing that. So DK, just to inform our viewing public, or the viewing and listeners as well, a quarter guard or a guard of honor, it symbolizes, it's a form of symbol and respect and tribute. It is used to honor dignitaries, heads of state, royalty, fallen soldiers, important guests. It represents the highest form of military respect. It also displays discipline and precision. From the time the guard commander calls his word of command and the soldiers or the defense force personnel execute their drill with precision, it shows that level of professionalism, discipline, and coordination. It's also cultural and historical. Once a state visit, it's honor represented and shown to a foreign leader. It's also used in opening of parliament, as we would have seen a couple of months ago. National pride. It also expresses the democracy and change of power. Diplomacy is at show. It is a diplomatic gesture that grants respect, goodwill, and strengthening of bilateral relations between two states.
And it's interesting the levels that diplomacy can run at. There are things that you see in terms of what we're seeing now.
Yes.
There are also things that you don't see.
Yes.
And sometimes those unheralded, to use your term, things that fly below the surface that so few people know about have such far-reaching implications and effects.
Yes.
So we see some members of the airport authority getting ready almost at the forehatch.
Yes.
So we're waiting to see when it opens. And who's the first person to disembark from the front of the plane?
Well, I am not aware of that, but I can, if I'm to make an educated guess, it may be the Prime Minister's chief of protocol.
Okay, but at this point in time, we see that members of the Trinidad and Tobago cabinet, they've been escorted by a protocol officer to form the greeting line along the red carpet. And the Minister of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs, the Chief of Protocol, and the High Commissioner for India, they apparently will board the aircraft.
Right.
So we're looking forward to see that at this point in time. elements. And let me also mention the fact that you see how those flags are rippling in the breeze.
Yes.
Now, we would have done a site visit earlier to make sure that things are the way they're supposed to be.
Right.
And that breeze is nothing to sniff at. So just looking at the fact that wanting to represent themselves well,
Yes.
sometimes you see that slight side to side, which is also a form of helping to maintain balance as opposed to just trying to remain static with it. I remember you said there's a trick you do
That's
sometimes
a trick of the trade, yes.
in terms of
Heel to toe.
moving
Yes.
heel to toe
Yes.
inside your boots.
Yes, inside your boots, but you don't do it too quickly because that's one of the close arrest charges. One of the close arrest charges would be forms of close arrest would be idleness on parade. So if you're moving, if you're idle, we have this statement that we say if a fly lands on you or a mosquito lands on your face, you say let it feed. You're not to touch it because you'll be in violation of that standing order. And you can be placed under close arrest.
You'll say these things and hurt my feelings sometimes.
It's not a hurt feelings part. It's actually part of, again, what the military represents, which is precision, discipline. This also here is part of the highest representation that any soldier can give to a head of state. And if you look at it, if I'm to draw a number of dots, all the dots make up, close dots together make up a solid line. If I'm to do that, this aspect here, if I misrepresent or I'm idle on parade, I am going to destroy the entire picture that someone has of Trinidad and Tobago and put a stain on the diplomatic circle of which I am carded to uphold.
And just looking at that point, I think that is one of the things I'm going to take away with regard to this broadcast as well, in terms of that those series of dots, you put them close together, you get that solid line. So everyone has a part to play.
That is
it might
correct.
be different, it
Yes.
might be varied, but at the same time, all hands on deck, as some people say.
Yes, because if the pioneers from the Pioneer Department did not lay the carpet properly, it would have also presented a form of disrespect. If all the members of the Air Guard suddenly turned up unwell and we had no one to do the Guard of Honor, which that would have hardly ever happened. It all plays a part. We all have a role to play.
We're looking at the roles that are being played at this point in time as the members of the Cabinet of Trinidad and Tobago are awaiting. And it is interesting because Prime Minister Modi was carded. The plane was originally supposed to reach a little later, and then we
Right.
heard it was reaching earlier.
Right.
And then it felt as though it found this golden mean.
Yes.
So, and part of these things can be checks. And how important are those checks? And one of the things I appreciate about the armed services is the way that things will be done real time to get the incremental time down to the second.
Yes. It's really important, because if we take and act like everything like what we're doing is extremely serious, it's going to reflect on the real day. So that's why you have rehearsals and dress rehearsals, and you walk through the entire thing. You make sure that you rehearse correctly. You, as the guard commander, will recite your word or commands in your head or even loudly, because you don't want to make a mistake. And the most important thing, one of the most important things, is to ensure that you put on a good show and you represent well, because it's going to be put down in history that you were the guy, and nobody wants to be that guy.
And the thing is, sometimes those things live so much longer and they have so much more legs.
Yes, than the actual truth of the day. One mistake may actually mar the entire visit, and that's why we want to ensure that we have a proper execution.
we see more movement. And it seems as though this is another group of individuals who have come from the
Yes.
rear of the plane.
And there are things that you won't see as well too. The Defense Force at times will also be responsible for transportation, and arms of the Ministry of Defense will also be part of transporting some of the dignitaries, some of the assistance from point A to point B. And that's part of the inherited work, part of the dots you don't see, part of the things that you would not know. In short, we have a shot of the colors, the Air Guard colors.
I'm not used to seeing them by themselves.
That's correct. Yeah.
And
I mean, we are currently at Piarco. The Air Guard is stationed at Piarco International Airport, UCAS station, Ulrich Cross Air Station.
there we have that door being opened. More checks being done. And we will expect the Minister of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs, the Chief of Protocol, and the High Commissioner for India to board the craft.
Yeah. Seen that happening.
And they would have actually done so in that order as well.
Yes.
And it always brings you in a little more to hear natural sound.
Yes.
But we would have spoken to the situation because you're actually hearing some of that breeze at this point in time. Is that one of the vehicles that
is
you were
correct.
speaking about?
That is correct, yes.
Okay, we just had the High Commissioner for India. Then we have Minister Sean Sobers, Minister of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs, disembarking. Now have the Chief of Protocol. And next we should see the Prime Minister of the Republic of India.
Correct. Once he disembarks the plane, you're going to see the Prime Minister of India take a position at the saluting dais. The Guard Commander will order the General Salute, present arms. The General Salute fanfare will be played, the National Anthem of India and the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago.
And there we have the man himself.
Historic moment as his feet lands on the soil of Trinidad and Tobago.
Yes, we have that first exchange with the Honorable Kamla Prasad Visesa, presenting a Prime Minister Modi with a bouquet of flowers. And then we have young Mr. I believe it's Zaydan. And there he's posing for a shot. Possibly admiring his attire. can see that Prime Minister Modi has a sense of the occasion as well, and he's even directing individuals to where they should be posing with him for this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity.
I totally agree with you.
The Chief of Protocol just introduced Prime Minister Modi, and was this to the captain?
This is to Captain Naval Don Polo, commanding officer of the Trinidad and Tobago Coast Guard. This is the saluting dice that we were talking about earlier.
And other members of the Prime Minister's entourage would have exited the rear of the aircraft.
Yes. National anthem of India. They're currently the Guard Commander has just ordered arms, shouldered arms and ordered arms. The Guard Commander will march up, salute, and report to the Honorable Narendra Modi, Prime Minister of India, and invite him to inspect the Guard, accompanied by the Chief of Defense Staff representative. Commander will now escort the Prime Minister of India to inspect the Guard, along with the Chief of Defense Staff representative, Captain Naval Don Polo.
Looking at the bilateral relations that this visit is supposed to engender and develop, it is very interesting. The song that is being, or should I say it is quite apt, the song that is being played, One Love,
yes,
by Shadow. Ambassador of Trinidad and Tobago. You see everyone trying to get that one shot.
$1 million shot. There we have the Igbo rhythm being played by members of the Malik folk performers. You should also see cultural display Yes.
by Shiv Shakti dancers and the Malik folk performers, who themselves have a very good working relationship together,
Yes.
showing us what we can be as a people.
It's the expression of Trinidad and Tobago, I would say. Do you feel that thing, that tingling sensation of pride, nationalism, that nationalistic kind of just joy inside? Do you feel it?
I do. I'm also looking at logistics.
Okay.
And I say logistics in the sense that I can imagine Prime Minister Modi almost having an internal clock saying, okay, he wants to spend the exact amount of time
Yes.
by both aspects of the cultural display.
Yes.
And now he's being greeted by the 100-person diaspora contingent who are gathered on the carpet. I'm also looking at the work being done by members of services,
Yes.
head on a swivel,
Yes.
making sure that no one in their charge and their care.
Everyone has a role to play. Part of adding up to the dots.
very interesting what you see in a broadcast like this versus those $1 million shots where we get a curated view.
Yes.
Or we get an idea of the person behind the lenses vision at that point in time.
Right. Yes, that is very true.
And sometimes it's just the opportunity that they had because that is the space that they were in.
Yeah.
It's also such a display of stakeholders that have to come together to make an event like this happen. As Prime Minister Modi is getting ready to proceed to his vehicle in the motorcade. And even looking at the logistics at this aspect of the proceedings, because you would have individuals who would have just met Prime Minister Modi on the red carpet, been introduced to him, having to leave in advance to make sure that they're there to greet him when he arrives.
Yes.
And I guess that would be part of the reason that we had some places closed to allow for, hopefully, easier movement of traffic?
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, the infrastructure is already in place for us to execute that. So I believe that could be one of the reasons why.
And the lights on the vehicles also help.
It's an added on feature.
One that is usually worked quite hard for, as we see the flag of India on the vehicle.
Yes.
And you spoke of pride, and sometimes we think that pride might just be in individuals who are in the armed services or some aspects of the defense services. You see these gentlemen part of the Airport Authority of Trinidad and Tobago, making sure that nothing ill takes place under their watch as well. As we still have the joint display of culture between Malik and Shiv Shakti.
Yes.
And once again, looking at the fact that this is taking place in conditions where one they're standing, as we see the Prime Minister taking off to be part of that motorcade, heading to where he's going to eventually meet more of the diaspora.
Yes.
Because at this point in time, on the tarmac, it was just 100 members of the diaspora. So we invite you to stay tuned to TTT Limited, where there will be the opportunity for more members of the diaspora to see him closer.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, DK. This was a historic day that everyone who witnessed it, who participated, who was in front, who was behind, they must be proud of this day. I would say a job well done to all persons who would have made this day a success.
And there you have it. The Prime Minister of the Republic of India, Shri Narendra Modi, is in Trinidad and Tobago. and it has been our pleasure bringing you the coverage thus far.
Yes.
We thank our subject matter experts, Dr. Sherry-Ann Singh of the University of the West Indies, as well as Captain Isaiah Eastman of the Trinidad and Tobago Regiment.
Yes.
And I'm DK Roster. On behalf of all of us here at TTT Limited, we invite you to stay tuned because our coverage is not finished yet, as Ria Rupchan Singh will let you know. Ria, you're going to take people through the events unfolding at the Cultural Diaspora event at the National Cycling Velodrome.
Yes,
How do you
thank
feel
so
of what
very
we've
much.
seen thus far?